Even though it's more than 50 years old, there's something about Pong that just keeps calling out to game developers. In just the last few years alone, we've seen the classic game inspire everything from hypergalactic psychic table tennis 3000 to Pong Quest, as well as play an important role in that weird mashup title Atari Mania. One of the coolest games inspired by Pong was the 2021 release of qomp, a minimalist adventure that sent the iconic ball through a tricky yet inventive obstacle course set just off screen. Now comes the sequel, qomp2, a game that fleshes out all the original title's best elements, all while adding enough new levels and ideas to feel like a proper follow-up. Get ready to do a whole lot more than just hit a ball back and forth, because this is my review of qomp2 from Atari. Not a lot has changed in the qomp story since the first game. This is still the harrowing adventure of the ball from Pong, who discovers a whole world full of excitement when he destroys one of the paddles and exits stage left. Now on its own, the ball will need to survive and puzzle its way through 30 increasingly challenging stages, complete with several different boss fights and a whole bunch of collectibles that always seem to be located in just out-of-the-way spots. The first thing you need to realize is that you don't actually have a whole lot of control over the ball. It is, after all, little more than a ball. It just bounces off of walls and objects just as you'd expect. One thing you can do is change the trajectory mid-flight. That is, if it's bouncing up, you can press the button and it'll point down. The only other move is a charge, which will turn your ball blue and then send it flying forward with a great burst of speed. And that's it. Those are all the moves in qomp2. Yeah, you can play this entire game with a single hand. Well, that may not sound like a whole lot of interactivity. This game actually makes the most of its simple 2-button setup. A lot of the puzzles are built around that charge attack, such as moving blocks or breaking them with your charge move. This is also how you'll trigger other blue objects, such as a whirlpool that'll hold your ball in place until you're ready to move. Another blue object will not only hold the ball, but will also act as a way to crank open the doors and gates that are blocking the way. Of course, this is just scratching the surface when it comes to the game's many obstacles. You'll occasionally run into sections where you have no control over the ball at all, so you're going to need to plan the trajectory ahead of time. There are also these dog blocks that'll chase your ball around if it gets too close to their cone of vision. Something that you can actually use to your advantage in order to get to the hard-to-reach locations. While I was amused by the dog blocks, I found myself actually hating every time the game introduced water to the puzzles. This completely reshapes the gameplay in some fun but frustrating ways. With only 30 stages to go through, the game doesn't have a whole lot of time to spin its wheels on any one of these gameplay wrinkles. It does that thing where it introduces an idea and then spends a couple of levels evolving it in different ways, only to then move on to something else. And then, just as you least expect it, suddenly the dog block or the water will show back up in a later level, forcing you to use all the knowledge that you've learned on the adventure. Even though they're occasionally challenging to the point of frustration, the levels are masterfully crafted and full of twists. There's no filler here. The game has enough fresh ideas so that qomp2 never feels like it's repeating itself. You definitely see that when it comes to the boss battles, each of which are completely different and will force you to use different skills. One thing that I really appreciated was how each of the battles is a multi-part affair. The first part of the fight will often be easy and little more than an introduction to the main course, while the second half will really put you to the test. One of my favorite bosses is actually a reworked version of the Atari classic Warlords. This is not the only reference to old school Atari, and there's a really fun one in the surprisingly great ending that you definitely won't see coming. Visually, qomp2 is really sharp. The game uses a striking 8-bit monochromatic look that certainly feels like it could be just off-screen of a Pong game, while also still looking like it came from the 2020s. It's this kind of weird combination of the fisheye lens and the way the background scrolls, creating a really interesting effect that reminds me of some of the better Virtual Boy games. I also love the way the game uses color, be it to highlight the puzzles or to represent the danger of the dog blocks. One thing is definitely clear, it doesn't look like anything else that I've seen this year, or even last year for that matter. As an adventure, I like the length and the story beats that play out entirely through the visuals. This is an easy game to recommend, especially if you're already sold on this type of action puzzle game. That said, I found myself wanting more. This is one of the few times where I beat a game and then wished that it would unlock some bonus levels or challenge modes or something. Yes, it's nice that it doesn't overstay its welcome or spin its wheels, but selfishly, I wanted more. You could practically hear me chanting VR missions while the credits rolled. I don't know. I suppose there are worse things than being left wanting more of a good thing. Although it won't be for everybody, I really liked the minimalist look and the simple yet effective gameplay. Much like the first game, this is a slight adventure that won't take you all that long to beat, but the boss fights are fun and the expertly crafted level designs make the most out of the 2-button gameplay. Best of all, it has a genuinely satisfying ending that'll leave you excited for more. Look, it definitely won't have the same level of impact as Pong, but qomp2 is a whole lot of fun, and when everything is said and done, that's what really matters. It's time to once again bounce your way to safety in qomp2. The fun and occasionally frustrating adventure game that takes place in the world of Pong. With simple 2-button gameplay, the ball is limited in how it can interact in the world. But that doesn't stop this action puzzler from coming up with a whole bunch of innovative ideas and obstacles. Sadly, much like the 2021 original, this game seems to end right when it's getting good. But I think there are enough levels, bosses, and collectibles to warrant the price. Now, let's see if we can convince the Breakout ball to team up with the Pong ball for the ultimate star-studded third installment. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What classic arcade game should be turned into an RPG? Look, it doesn't have to be like a turn-based role-playing game or anything. I'm really just talking about an adventure game. Something that fleshes out the lore of the game and gives it, a little bit more personality. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with a review of Geometry Survivor, which is probably what you think it is. We're also going to have another magazine matchup on Wednesday, and more Nintendo Switch Online review crew on Friday. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.